Remarrying after zestig. 5 hidden truths you must hear before saying I do again. You've made it through the storm's decades of building, loving, losing, and starting over. You've raised families, buried dreams, and found strength in places you never expected. So why, after everything, does the idea of remarrying now feel both exciting and terrifying? Because deep down, you know the truth. Love after 60 isn't the same. It's wiser, yes, but it's also riskier. And what no one tells you is that a second I do can quietly unravel everything you've worked a lifetime to protect. You've seen it happen, friends, blindsided after remarrying, suddenly cut off from social security they depended on, watching their children grow distant, their carefully built legacy tangled in legal confusion. One signature, one wedding vow, and everything changes. Your home, your health decisions, even the money you set aside for your grandkids, suddenly it's not just yours anymore. And the worst part? Most people don't realize it until it's too late. Until they're sitting across from an attorney, or worse, in a hospital bed, asking how it all got so complicated. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. You're not starting from scratch this time. You're entering this chapter with hard-earned wisdom, sharper instincts, and the right to protect your peace. This video isn't about fear, it's about power. Your power to choose love without sacrificing your security, your family bonds, or your independence. It's about waking up to the 5 truths no one tells you before remarrying after 60, and using them to build a future that's not just romantic, but rock solid. If you're even thinking about opening your heart again, you need to hear this. Because love at this stage of life should bring joy, not jeopardy. And when you understand what's really at stake, you won't just say yes to love, you'll say yes to love on your terms. Stay with me. What you're about to hear could save your future and maybe even your family from heartache you never saw coming. Comment number 1, or I'm here for love and wisdom below. If this topic speaks to you, we'd love to know who's watching. Truth number 1, finances, after 60, are a whole new ballgame. Here's where most love stories after 60 go off course, and it's not where you think. It's not about trust, or compatibility, or even romance. It's money. Cold, complicated, legally binding money. You see, when you say I do again at this stage, you're not just joining hearts. You're merging estates, retirement accounts, government benefits, debts, and decades of financial baggage. And most people don't realize just how fast a new marriage can shake the foundation of everything they've built. Take Gloria, 68, from Arizona. After years of widowhood, she finally said yes to a kind, gentle man she met through her church group. Love bloomed, and the wedding was beautiful. But just a few months in, she got a letter from Social Security. Her widow's benefits, based on her late husband's work history, had stopped. She hadn't known that remarrying would wipe out the monthly support that helped cover her mortgage. Suddenly, she was dipping into savings just to get by, and worse, she felt too ashamed to tell her children what had happened. And she's not alone. Remarriage can affect everything from your Social Security eligibility to your pension payouts to the taxes you pay each year. Even if you've kept your finances separate for decades, marriage rewrites the rules. Depending on your state, your spouse could be legally entitled to a portion of your estate even if your will says otherwise. That trust you set up for your grandchildren? It could be contested. That house you fully own? It might not stay in the family if you pass first. It's not romantic, but it's real. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being smart. You've worked too hard and come too far to let love undo your legacy. Before you walk down the aisle, you need to ask the hard questions. How will this affect my income? What happens to my assets if I die first? Will our debts become shared? These aren't things to ignore, they're things to clarify now, while you're in love, not later when you're in court or in crisis. And here's the kicker most folks miss. Even with separate bank accounts, the law may still treat your assets as shared, especially in community property states. That means your new spouse's financial history could follow you, and your history could follow them. Love is blind, but the IRS and estate law are not. Protecting yourself financially is not a lack of trust, it's a show of wisdom, strength, and respect for the life you've already built. So here's your wake-up call. Before you say yes to forever, say yes to a financial planner. Say yes to uncomfortable conversations. Say yes to protecting your peace. Because love in your 60s can be beautiful, but only if it doesn't cost you the security, stability, and independence you've spent a lifetime earning. Truth number 2. Family dynamics will shift and not always smoothly. You might think that your family will be thrilled. You found love again, but here's the truth that catches many by surprise. Love after 60 doesn't just bring joy, it stirs the waters of long-standing family dynamics. You're not just bringing someone new into your life, you're inviting them into a web of adult children, grandchildren, traditions, unspoken memories, and sometimes unresolved grief. And that can turn even the warmest family dinner into a minefield. Meet Richard, 71, a retired firefighter from Michigan. After losing his wife of 42 years, he spent 5 quiet years alone before reconnecting with Linda, an old high school friend. They laughed like teenagers, shared their mornings over coffee, and after a year of companionship, they decided to marry. But his daughter? She wasn't just upset, she was devastated. Not because she didn't want him to be happy, but because in her eyes, it felt like her mother was being replaced. Suddenly, holidays felt tense, conversations were clipped, and the easy family closeness they once had started to crumble. This isn't uncommon. Adult children often carry more emotion than they show. They may feel loyalty to the parent who passed away, or suspicion toward your new partner. Some worry about inheritance, others fear being pushed aside. And let's be honest, at our age, we don't come with a blank slate. We come with histories, homes, grandkids, and decades of habits. Merging families at this stage can feel less like a romantic movie and more like a careful negotiation. But don't let that discourage you, let it prepare you. Because when handled with empathy and strength, your second chapter can include your family, not exclude them. The key is conversation. Not just once, but openly and often. Tell your children what this new relationship means to you. Reassure them they're not being replaced, that their place in your heart and life remains. And be willing to listen. Their fears may not be rational, but they're real. It's also vital to set boundaries early. Maybe your partner's family has different traditions, or maybe their adult kids aren't exactly welcoming either. Blending 2 sets of adult expectations can be harder than blending toddlers. Be patient, but be firm. This is your life, your happiness, and while family matters, so does your right to love. Here's something most people overlook. It's not just about the big issues like money or inheritance. It's the small things: who cooks Thanksgiving dinner now, whose house Christmas is at, who sits where at weddings. Love touches all those little rituals that hold deep emotional weight. And without open dialogue, those little things can create big rifts. So before you get swept up in wedding plans or cozy weekends with your new partner, take a moment to prepare your family for this new chapter. Invite them in not just to accept your decision, but to understand it. Because if love is worth starting over for, then it's worth doing the work to make sure it doesn't cost you the relationships that matter most. Have you had a tough family conversation like this? Type family first or number 2 in the comments if you faced it head on. Truth number 3. Emotional expectations are different. Now, after you've faced the shifting tides of family dynamics, there's another truth that quietly waits beneath the surface, one most people never see coming until it shakes their relationship. The emotional rules of love after 60 are different, dramatically different. This isn't the love of your 20s or 30s. It's not about building a future, raising kids, or growing careers. This time, it's about merging fully formed lives, identities, and rhythms. And that can be far more complicated than anyone prepares you for. Picture this. Carol, 66, fiercely independent, had spent the last 12 years living alone in her cozy home in Oregon. She loved her routinely morning walks, evening puzzles, coffee with old friends. Then she met Don, 70, a warm-hearted widower who adored company and wanted to be together all the time. At first, the companionship felt comforting, but soon Don's constant presence felt like an intrusion. Carol missed her solitude, and Don, in turn, felt hurt and rejected. It wasn't about love, it was about unspoken emotional expectations neither of them had thought to name. That's the trap. We assume that if love is real, it will feel effortless. But after 60, real love often demands more clarity, more honesty, and more flexibility than it ever did before. Why? Because by now, we've all become experts at living life our way. We've built habits that make us feel safe, created homes that reflect who we are, and learned to enjoy our own space. So when someone new enters that world, even with love in their heart, it can feel less like romance and more like rearranging everything that once felt settled. This is where couples stumble when they confuse chemistry for compatibility, or assume that shared affection means shared expectations. But emotional fulfillment in this chapter of life comes from something deeper, understanding how much space you need, how you want to communicate, what kind of intimacy truly matters to you now. Maybe you don't want to share a home, but you want to share sunsets. Maybe your idea of closeness is a quiet evening, not constant conversation. And that's okay. Even more, you both carry emotional history, memories of a spouse you lost, pain from a difficult divorce, years of independence that shaped your sense of self. These aren't baggage, they're your story. But if left unspoken, they become walls. The key is to make room for both your past and your present, to allow your new partner to understand not just who you are, but how you've become that person. So before you dive into love, ask yourself, what do I truly want this relationship to feel like? What emotional needs do I have now that I didn't have before? And what am I unwilling to sacrifice to keep my peace? Because this time, love isn't about fixing or completing you, it's about complementing the beautiful, full life you've already built. Do you think separate homes can still mean real love? Like this video if you agree that freedom and love can go hand in hand. Truth. Number 4. Legal matters are more important than ever. Just when you've begun to navigate the emotional landscape of love after 60, another truth steps in, none that's quieter but far more dangerous if ignored. A remarriage at this stage isn't just a matter of the heart, and it's a legal contract. And what you don't know can hurt you. In fact, legal oversights are one of the top reasons why second marriages fall into chaos, not because the love wasn't real, but because the fine print was never read. Imagine this. Thomas, 72, found joy again with Jean, a bright, loving woman he married after 2 years of companionship. Life felt whole again until Thomas suffered a stroke. His adult son assumed he'd be the one making medical decisions, but by law, Jean now held that authority. Suddenly, a woman he barely knew was responsible for life or death choices for his father. The result? A painful battle, strained relationships, and confusion that could have been prevented with a few signatures years earlier. That's the storm most people never see coming. When you remarry, your new spouse automatically gains certain rights that can override your children, your will, even your wishes. If you haven't updated your estate plan, your assets may not go to who you think they will. That cabin you meant to leave your granddaughter, it could legally pass to your new spouse instead. And if your spouse remarries after you're gone, that property might leave your family line forever. It's not just about money. It's about medical decisions, real estate, retirement accounts, even who has the right to be by your bedside. And here's the part no one wants to admit. Love doesn't protect you in a courtroom. Paperwork does. Legal clarity isn't unromantic, it's a gift to those you love. It protects your children, your partner, and your peace of mind. It ensures your legacy reflects your values, not just outdated paperwork from decades ago. A well-crafted prenuptial agreement isn't cold-hearted, it's courageous. It says, I trust you, but I also respect the life we each built before finding each other. Updating your will, your power of attorney, your living trust, these aren't chores. They're declarations of intention. And doing it together? That's real partnership. So before you get lost in wedding plans or dreams of a shared retirement, sit down with an attorney who understands estate law for later life marriages. Have the hard conversations now so your loved ones won't be left picking up the pieces later. Because at this stage, love should bring peace and not legal battles. And the most loving thing you can do isn't just say, I do, it's say, I'm prepared. Truth number 5. Redefine what happiness means to you. They told you happiness comes in pairs. That growing old alone is something to be feared, fixed, or solved with a ring. You've heard the whispers. You're too young to be alone. You still have time. Don't you want someone by your side? But what if the real question isn't about finding someone? What if it's about finding yourself again? You see, happiness after 60 doesn't wear the same face it did at 30. Back then, joy came from building homes, careers, families, futures. Now joy might come from preserving, from protecting the peace you fought so hard to earn, from mornings with no alarms, from knowing that silence isn't emptiness, it's freedom, and from realizing that your worth has never, ever been tied to your relationship status. But here's the twist. Many step into remarriage hoping it will restore what they lost, when in fact it may demand they give up what they just found: their independence, their space, their calm. So before you step forward, dare to pause. Ask not, will this person love me, but will this life feel like mine? There's no shame in wanting to keep your home to yourself, your routines untouched, your name on the deed alone. There's no shame in craving companionship over commitment, laughter over legal ties, presence over permanence. And there's certainly no shame in saying I'm enough, because you are. Think of Helen, 73, who spent decades putting others first: her husband, her children, her church. After losing her spouse, people assumed she'd remarry quickly. But Helen didn't want to fill a space, she wanted to breathe in it. She dated, yes. She even fell in love. But when he proposed, she paused. Will I still be able to garden every morning? Will I still have Fridays with my bridge club? Will my world expander shrink? The answer came quietly. She chose to stay in love, but live apart. And she never looked back. What about you? Are you choosing a path that expands your spirit, or one that demands you shrink to fit someone else's life? Your happiness now isn't about grand gestures or wedding bells. It's about alignment, flow, the gentle joy of waking up and saying, this is exactly the life I want. So redefine happiness on your terms. Tear up the old map and draw a new one where love is optional, but peace is non-negotiable. If someone joins you on that road, beautiful. If not, walk it any with your head high, your heart light, and the wisdom of knowing that happiness was never behind you or beside you. It was always within. If you've made it this far, take a deep breath. You've just walked through 5 of the most important truths no one talks about when it comes to remarrying after 60. And if your heart feels full, your mind buzzing, or your chest a little tight, that's good. That means you're awake. You're not just drifting toward love, you're choosing it with clarity, with courage, and with your eyes wide open. Because the truth is, love at this stage of life isn't about fairy tales. It's about freedom. It's about knowing what not to compromise, what's truly worth protecting, and who's worth letting in. You've spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let anyone, not even love, undo that. And now, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment okay below and tell us, what does happiness look like to you now? Has it changed from what it used to be? If this video opened your eyes or gave you peace of mind, give it a like. It lets us know we're creating something meaningful. And if you believe this kind of wisdom deserves to be heard, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. You're not alone on this journey. We're building a space where growing older means growing stronger, wiser, and freer. Your next chapter is yours to write. Just make sure it's written in your voice and not someone else's expectations. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay grounded, stay bold, and never forget you are the author of your own joy.